welcome to this new NML webinar. It's a great pleasure to have you online again. Thank you for joining us. Today, we have a very nice speaker to discuss the possibilities of hydrogen valleys. But before that, just a quick reminder about what NML is and what we do. So NML is a project that is funded by the European Innovation Council, and we are basically trying to do the electrolysis of seawater to make more sustainable hydrogen and also hydrogen available to more people. And one of the strategies to do that in Europe is also trying to fund and trying to support hydrogen valleys. And that is why we have a speaker here today, María Jaén. I always forget about this, but it's an important thing to make it like a very interactive webinar. So there's going to be a Q&A session at the end. If you have any questions, please pop them in the live chat on YouTube, and we'll address them at the end of the talk. Then just a quick introduction about our speaker today. María Jaén is a team leader at EPRI with over 20 years of experience in the field of green hydrogen and other sustainable solutions and renewable energies. Before that, she was also a leader in the project Green Hysland, which was designed to create a hydrogen valley, an ecosystem based on the hydrogen economy in the island of Mallorca in Spain. And basically, that gave her a lot of experience in hydrogen valleys in Europe. So today, we're going to talk about hydrogen valleys, what they are, what type of ecosystems they create in different places, and then also what opportunities and challenges they present for the European economy, as well as a small comparison with the current scenario in the US to try to see how the two different economies and the two different strategies are trying to bring green hydrogen to a realization in the next few years. So without further ado, I'm just very happy to introduce our speaker today, María Jaén. María, the floor is yours. I'm really looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you so much. So hello, everyone. It's a great pleasure to share with you this seminar in which we will review together how hydrogen valleys can help on the road to decarbonization. I would like to thank to NML Projects the opportunity, and in particular to Fernando Gomollon, and the whole team, as well as Pau Faras for the invitation. So I hope you will find it interesting. So previously starting with the hydrogen valley concepts, let's talk a little about EPRI. So EPRI was founded in 1972. EPRI is an independent, non-profit energy research and development organization. So EPRI is Electrical Power Research Institute. So we collaborate with more than 450 companies in 4 or 5 countries around the world, driving innovation to ensure the public has clean, safe, reliable, affordable, and equitable access to electricity across the globe. So EPRI stimulates innovation and plays a key role in validating technology across multiple utilities, fostering widespread acceptance, and supporting and helping accelerate technology to commercial development and industry adoption. I'm not going to go deep in detail of all of our principles and guidelines, but I would like to highlight like 3 concepts. So the first one is collaboration. So EPRI truly believes that through collaboration research, we can advance technologies faster. We have around 150, 200 programs where different actors, industry, academia, R&D centers, governments, etc., share knowledge and experience in all technologies involved. And in all of them involving the generation and use of energy. So another thing I would like to highlight is our objectivity and independence. Our system of governance ensures that our activity is independent, reporting with scientific and technical rigor on the different topics of interest to the industry and society in general. And then the third one is innovation. So we relentlessly pursue creative thinking that advance valuable science-based solutions. So EPRI is organized into different sectors, covering supply, demand, and everything in between. You may think on assets, system integration, modeling, demand management, energy system evolution forecasting, for example. So based on all of these sectors, we define strategic research in different areas, such as the ones that you see in the bottom of the slide, which is low carbon resources, and use and economic-wide carbon reduction, electric system reliability and resilience, very, very important topic, electric system flexibility, on market transformation, policy, and regulatory education. So going deep in detail about the European decarbonisation targets for 2030, the European Climate Law makes reaching the European climate goal of reducing emissions by at least 55% by 2030 a legal obligation. The European countries are working on new legislation to achieve this goal and make Europe the first continent climate neutral continent by 2050. So the Fit for 55 package includes some unit objectives to increase the current EU-wide targets of at least 32% of renewable energy sources in the overall energy mix, and reduce final energy consumption at European level by 11.7% in 2030 compared to the projection made in 2020. So in terms of hydrogen, the goal is to shift from natural gas to renewable and low carbon gases and boost their uptake to Europe by 2030, and to establish common internal market standards for renewable and natural gases, including hydrogen. So, in response to Russia invasion of Ukraine, the European Union approved a new package of measures to ensure Russia's energy dependence. In this work package, they included hydrogen. And regarding hydrogen, Europe aims to reach 10 million tons of domestic renewable hydrogen production and 10 million tons of imported renewable hydrogen by 2030. Focus on the 10 million tons of domestic renewable hydrogen, we will need more than 500 terabytes hour of renewable electricity, and we will need more than 40 gigawatts of electrolysis. Today we have less than 1 gigawatt of electrolysis. And as for the 10 million tons of imported hydrogen, the European Commission expects these quantities to arrive via three major corridors, which is the Mediterranean, the North Sea, and Ukraine once the country is stable again. So how can hydrogen be promoted in Europe? So Europe has established some instruments and some rules in order to see how hydrogen could help to decarbonize. So we need to create a sustainable industrial value chain. We are looking for replacing the hydrogen used by industry for clean hydrogen, mainly for this chemical industry, refineries, fertilizers, and so on. We need a supportive framework, well-functioning markets, and clear rules. So, we have been reviewing some of the different legislation that the European Commission has recently published, and they are trying to explain a little better what is the concept of renewable hydrogen and what are the rules that are going to apply to consider this hydrogen as renewable. Then for sure, research and innovation is something that we need to work very, very hard, because it's key if we would like to advance technology. Europe, we will secure cooperation opportunities. Sharing knowledge and experience is key if we would like to go faster. And then the European Commission created the European Clean Hydrogen Alliance. That is a place where all the main stakeholders in Europe regarding hydrogen we meet, and we establish some common rules and some guidelines in terms of how hydrogen could help this decarbonization. So hydrogen valleys is a key element in order to repower the European Union. If you want a little more on the hydrogen valleys, what is a hydrogen valley? So there are common characteristics of what constitutes a hydrogen valley, and I would like to highlight the following. Large in scale. So the project scope goes beyond mere demonstration activities and entails at least a two-digit multi-million euro investment. It typically also includes several sub-projects that make up the larger valley portfolio. It has a clearly defined geographic scope. So hydrogen valleys are hydrogen ecosystems that cover a specific geography. Their footprint can range from a local or regional focus, for example, a major port, to a specific national or international region, for example, a transport corridor from port to port with a specific customer targeted. Another key element is the broad value chain coverage. So along their geography scope, hydrogen valleys cover multiple steps in the hydrogen value chain, ranging from clean hydrogen production and often even dedicated renewables production to the subsequent transportation, storage, and distribution to off-takers. And finally, I would like to highlight the multiple end uses. So hydrogen valleys usually showcase the versatility of hydrogen by supplying several sectors in the geography, such as mobility, industry, and energy end uses. Hydrogen valleys are ecosystems of clusters where various final applications share a common hydrogen supply infrastructure. The Hydrogen Valley concept, initiated in Europe, raised interest all over the world, and many geographies are developing similar concepts. They could call them hydrogen hubs, hydrogen clusters, hydrogen valleys, but what is true is that today nearly 100 hydrogen valleys are represented all over the world. So if we go deep in detail about the hydrogen valleys, we have like three kinds of archetypes, three kind of types. So the first one um, comprises rather local hydrogen valley initiatives that primarily address mobility applications, such as heavy-duty truck or bus fleets. A key strategic element of this initiative is the pooling of demand from fleet operators and the other users. The centralization of hydrogen production, consumption, and infrastructure within a specific region allows these initiatives to achieve climate objectives, reduce local emissions, and stimulate economic growth and job creation. The capacity of these hydrogen valleys usually is between 5 and 20 megawatts, and the key challenges are focused on managing many different stakeholders with different interests. So we can think about 20, 30 different partners from different countries that they have joined this initiative because of different reasons. If we go to archetype 2, this is what we call medium scale. This type is centered around medium scale hydrogen production, something between 20 and 30 megawatts, and consumption projects that primarily cater to industrial uses. So this type of hydrogen valleys represent 41% of the existing hydrogen valleys. So these valleys are key in decarbonizing industrial feedstock, primarily serve large industrial consumers such as steel makers, petrochemical players, or fertilizer producers, which have a significant initial demand for clean hydrogen as a replacement for existing gray hydrogen supply. These projects are typically constrained by the supply of renewable electricity due to existing grid constraints and available PPAs, power purchase agreements. Another key hurdle is the seamless integration with other industrial processes, which requires careful planning and coordination. The key challenges here is based on the regulation and the power sourcing, as we have mentioned. And then we have the archetype 3. So the archetype 3, representing 20%, focus on the development of large-scale hydrogen production, often export-oriented, aiming to connect regions with high production conditions to global demand centers. So these projects are the largest. We are talking about hundreds of megawatts, even gigawatts. They plan to start with the smaller local off-takers and gradually scale up for international trade. However, a challenge lies in the commercial de-risking and deployment of the technology at the scale of ultimately several gigawatts of electrolyzers, albeit typically in several build-out phases, or equivalent large-scale blue hydrogen production capacity. These represent about 20% of the existing hydrogen valleys. If we go take a look all over the world, we can see that in North America and South America, there are more focus on archetype 3 of developing projects that are going to export this hydrogen to other countries. If we take a look to Europe, we see that there are a lot of archetypes 1, because Europe was the first continent that started, thinking about hydrogen valleys, and they're moving to archetype 2, and there's some of archetype 3. So Naturally, usually you start with archetype 1, then you are planning to scale up with archetype 2, and then at the end you are planning to complete your hydrogen valley with this archetype 3. Regarding the drivers for valley developer, why developers are developing these hydrogen valleys? While climate action and industrial policy are still the main drivers to promote hydrogen valleys, geopolitical conflicts and uncertainties have also underscored the need for diversification and resiliency in energy supply chains. So more than 50% of developers now see energy security as a main project driver and a top priority, compared to 40% in 2021, only in 2 years. So simultaneously, strategic investment in new business models have gained prominence among developers. Compared to 2021, around 40% more hydrogen valleys see this as an important project driver, addressing the long-term future of their business model. In terms of the status of the hydrogen valleys are evolving at a very different speeds and to different stages in the life cycle. So 3/4 of the valleys are yet to take a final investment decision, but the community, continues to grow. So the financial investment decision seems to have become the major hurdle for project advancement. The underlying reasons are manifold and chiefly concern the lack of effective de-risking frameworks or highly individualized de-risking approaches with high transaction costs. So development capital needs are very, very substantial. I mean, they need real money to be spent in these hydrogen valleys. And we are talking about multi-million or ever multi-billion euro investment decisions with 50, 20-year payback time. So it's really, really a very hard decision. So the pre-FEED studies, the detailed cost estimates and the contractual off-taker arrangements need to be produced. And accessing subsidy schemes and building up capable developer teams takes time and requires funding. So, but we can also think that there is also an increasing share of projects moving into the construction and operation phases, indicating progress in the implementation of hydrogen valleys. So currently, 17 hydrogen valleys are in the construction phase or already fully operational. So looking ahead, several valleys expect to commence operation in 2025, 2026. So the next 2 years will determine what the overall deployment trajectory for the rest of the 2020s might look like. In terms of technology, what is the type of the technology that these hydrogen valleys now are developing? So the majority, when we are talking about upstream, the majority build on green hydrogen production for PEM or alkaline electrolyzers. Only 9 valleys have indicated the plans to produce blue hydrogen and carbon capture units. So the valley's overall state large supply ambitions, it's more than 4 million tons of clean hydrogen to the market in the second half of the decade. So in the final build out, they even aspire to further expand production by a factor of 4. So we are talking about more than 20 million of tons of hydrogen production. If we take a look to the midstream segment, approaches to transportation and storage are consistently combining larger scale infrastructure assets for bulk offtake with cylinder and tracking solutions for more distributed use cases. As more export-oriented hydrogen valleys are developed, shipping and ammonia as a derivative are becoming increasingly important. If we jump to the downstream piece, in terms of hydrogen end use, mobility still play an important role, and the decarbonization of local region transport is key. It's about 80% of the hydrogen valleys. However, while heavy-duty road mobility use cases still dominate as early more of takers, 35 of mobility-focused valleys now also target the decarbonization of the shipping sector. If we are talking about industrial end uses, the industrial offtake strongly focuses on hard-to-abate feedstock uses of hydrogen, for example, in refineries or to produce fertilizers. And the grids is also another thing very important to consider, as the gas grids and gas-fired power plants are already able to take on shares of hydrogen and use this blending between hydrogen and natural gas. Such offtake routes are often integrated in the overall hydrogen valley approach to secure flexible but reliable offtake. If we are talking about what are the volumes that the hydrogen valleys are planning to produce, one notable development is the growing size of the hydrogen valley projects, with an increasing number of initiatives with a production volume exceeding 10,000 tons of hydrogen per year. So they have been multiplied by 3 regarding the 2021. However, it's important to acknowledge that projects vary in size across the different regions, with significant additions of large-scale projects in Southern Europe, the US, and the Middle East, as we have shown in the previous slides. And how are costs? So as Hydrogen Valley expand and benefit from larger production capacities, they can leverage economies of scale to drive down cost. The average anticipated clean hydrogen production cost of hydrogen valleys decreased from 6.4 to 6.1 euros per kilogram in 2024. And the increase in hydrogen valleys, they are estimating that the LCOH, the level cost of hydrogen, will be in the range of between 4 and 6 euros per kilogram. That indicates a growing number of projects aiming for more cost-efficient production. So every fifth project plans to operate within the price below 4 euros per kilo, more or less. What are the success factors for Hydrogen Valley developers? So 77% of Hydrogen Valleys see their business model development as the most important overall success factor. So followed closely by securing funding for the collective investment. For project developers, this means setting up some commercial structures, defining the commercial relationships, allocating economic risk and rewards among all parties, and building bankable project financing concepts. So the hydrogen value chain includes all of those elements. So we have energy supply, we have production, we have conversion, we have transportation, storage and recirculation, and we have the end users that could play industry of takers, mobility of takers, and even other end users in terms of energy. So far from following this order, the key success factors for integrated green hydrogen projects start at the end of the hydrogen value chain. So firstly, any hydrogen project and any hydrogen valley starts with identifying and securing off-takers. The level of firmness in off-take commitments is what separates early stage from advanced projects. So proximity to large anchor off-takers can be an important de-risking element, as nearby off-takers depend less on their own or third-party investment in transportation infrastructures. So offtake can be further the risk with the help of demand-side public support schemes to bridge the gap between a developer's land cost and an off-taker's willingness to pay gap. So many hydrogen valleys build their commercial structure and offtake strategy around demand-side policy measures, such as contractors for difference of public auctions or quotas, for example. So secondly, we jump to the upstream. So upstream green hydrogen production needs to be set up competitively, for example, low-cost production. So one key success factor is access to efficient and high-capacity factor renewable energy sources or competitive natural gas sources coupled with easy-to-access CCS potential, enabling lower cost clean hydrogen production at scale. So thirdly, at the midstream part of the value chain, Valley needs to develop mature and cost-competitive transportation solution, including conversion and storage, especially if the project doesn't operate in a fully captive setting. So long-term agreements for transportation are a key project structuring elements. Fourthly, the hydrogen value chain, the industrial supply chains of the required equipment are another critical element for project success. Here, it's essential to mobilize experienced EPC constructors for turnkey delivery and ensure the proactive permitting and licensing processes are in place, where authorities are engaged early on. Additionally, strong technology suppliers with a proven track record and ideally local presence are critical for moving projects to FID and implementing them in time and in budget and according to the constraints. And lastly, effective government support is an underlying and cross-cutting success factor. By setting a strategic direction for the hydrogen sector or supporting with specific public funding schemes. Um, as are smart project facing scaling and integrated partnership model across project stakeholder groups. In terms of funding and financing, the share of projects with public funding at regional and local level has decreased, at local level significantly, reflecting a trend away from archetype one hydrogen valleys with a very local scope towards more regionally integrated valleys around industrial cluster, which is more archetype 2. So funding from public institutions typically covers only a portion of the projects, it's usually 20-30%. So more funding schemes are needed in order to guarantee, the success of the projects. If we take a look about the main hurdles and barriers for the hydrogen valley in the preparation phase, so overall, obtaining funding remains the most common barrier for hydrogen valleys development. So the most prevalent hurdles for hydrogen valleys in this regard are tapping into public funding schemes, concluding offtake contracts, and unlocking private investment, while mastering technological readiness and dealing with regulatory provisions are also commonly highlighted. So what are the key hurdles for green hydrogen projects when if we would like to accelerate the process of to take this final investment decision? So there are key common barriers for projects. We can divide it into three, or cluster into three different categories. So first technology, then is project execution, and then contracts and regulation. So if we are talking about clean hydrogen technology, most of the hydrogen valleys still identify technological maturity and or availability as a harder to develop in the projects. So one of the key issues is the lack of sufficient operational proof points of electrolyzer at scale, particularly when we are talking about multi-megawatt and gigawatt scale. If you remember, archetype 2 and archetype 3. So currently, many technologies and OEMs have a limited operational track record, and performance guarantees are hard to compare to other energy equipment classes. So supply chain constraints are another critical technology barrier. The need for a coordinated capacity ramp up of OEMs and suppliers at multiple tiers is also proving to be a bigger challenge for electrolyzers and fuel cells than anticipated by project developers and industrial players alike. Furthermore, the low technology readiness level, TRL, of critical applications for hydrogen transportation and end use poses a challenge. So technologies such as ammonia cracking and liquid organic hydrogen carriers or hydrogen-based direct reduced iron or ammonia, even ammonia in shipping, are still at lowest TRLs and have not been deployed at scale, underlining the importance of further technology development and successful initial deployments. If we jump to the project execution, so hydrogen valleys also faces significant structural barriers in project execution, including delays in the build up out of renewables and challenges in obtaining permits and licenses in a timely manner. Another challenge is the slow build out of renewable energy capacities, mostly solar PV, onshore and offshore wind, and the delayed expansion of the power grid, especially in Europe. So the bottleneck in green electricity supply and infrastructure will have a significant positive impact on many hydrogen valley initiatives in terms of schedule and cost. And if we go to the regulation and economics, so another key obstacle for green hydrogen projects on their way to this FID is the lack of commitment and enabling regulatory frameworks for a long-term bankable purchase agreements. So clean hydrogen producers need binding long-term purchase commitments for a reliable buyer to take an FID and secure financing for their investment. investment. So while the entry into force of various regulation, RED 2, RED 3 in Europe, for example, or IRA in the US, that has helped to clarify what is meant by renewable hydrogen. But Hydrogen Valley developers continue to struggling with the complexity of public financing instruments, such as CAPEX financing schemes, which are overly complex. So simpler approaches such as tax incentives, for example, tend to be perceived as more effective. If we, this is what I would like to share with you about Europe. But if we jump to the US just to see how it's going on there, so the U.S. and the government, the Department of Energy, has established some instruments in order to boost hydrogen in their economy. So I have included here in this slide some of the examples what the DOE is doing. So if we are talking about the National Clean Hydrogen Strategy and Roadmap, is a comprehensive national framework for facilitating large-scale production, processing, delivery, storage, and use of clean hydrogen to support meet decarbonization goals across virtually all sectors of the economy. So the strategy and roadmap aligns with the administration goals that includes 50% to 52% reduction of the U.S. emissions from 2025 levels to, 205 to levels by 2030. So another goal is 100% carbon pollution-free electricity by 2035. Another one is net zero emissions no later than 2050. And then we have 40% of the benefits of the federal climate investment delivered to disadvantaged communities. So that brings a huge opportunity for the clean hydrogen production. The goal is to produce 10 million tons by 2030, 20 million tons by 2040, and 50 million tons by 2050. So, and what they are looking for is to reduce at 10% of the economy-wide emissions. If we go here to the clean hydrogen standard, which is the second that you see here in blue, the Department of Energy released guidance for these clean hydrogen production standards. The idea is to develop, to meet the requirements of the law that they have. So this proposal establishes a target of 4.0 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per kilogram of hydrogen for life cycles, well to gate, greenhouse emissions associated with hydrogen production. So this is another instrument that they have. Additionally, they had published in 2022, they published this Inflation Reduction Act, what this is called by IRA. So includes clean energy tax credits and other provisions that would increase domestic renewable energy production. So the IRA's clean energy incentives include many provisions for clean hydrogen and fuel cell technologies, either extending many existing federal tax credits and increasing existing federal tax credits or creating new ones. So the clean hydrogen production tax credit creates a new 10-year incentive for clean hydrogen production tax with up to $3 per kilogram. Projects can also elect to claim up to a 30% investment for tax credit under Section 48. And the level of this credit provided is based on the carbon intensity to a maximum of 4 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per kilogram of hydrogen. If we go to the next one, is the Hydrogen Interagency Task Force. It's a collaboration among US federal agencies to further advance a whole of government approaches to execute the National Clean Hydrogen Strategy we've seen at the beginning, including development of a robust market supported by domestic supply chains and sustainability jobs. On the right side, you can see the hydrogen shot. So the hydrogen shot seeks to reduce the cost of clean hydrogen by 80% to $1 per 1 kilogram in 1 decade. This is the meaning of 111, $1 per 1 kilogram in 1 decade. And this is what the hydrogen shot is looking for. Then we have the hydrogen hubs, which is something that I have prepared a couple of slides just to explain to you what is the situation there. So the idea is to catalyze the clean hydrogen industry to link prospective producer of clean hydrogen with prospective buyers. One risk factor that the program faces that there are too many willing suppliers, but there are too few buyers. So to address the challenge of connecting buyers and sellers of clean hydrogen, the DOE released an invest of up to 1 billion, additional 1 billion towards establishing a demand side support mechanism for these hydrogen hubs. And then we have another instrument, which is the Clean Hydrogen Pathways for to Commercial Litoff. So March 2021, DOE prepared and published 3 reports. These reports are covers really long duration stage, advanced nuclear and clean hydrogen. So in the one that is related with the clean hydrogen, they indicates that although there is increased investor engagement and project announcement, challenges such as infrastructure build-out, demand uncertainty, and workforce development must be addressed for clean hydrogen to realize its full potential. And then we have included here like a couple of additional DOE funding. So on March 2024 this year, the DOE announced another 1.5 billion dollars in order to support the development of clean hydrogen electrolysis and development of the clean hydrogen manufacturing and recycling. So I have included the links in all of these different instruments in case you would like to know a little more about it. So in the US, the Biden administration launched a call regarding the hydrogen valleys with $7 billion. And these are the 7 hydrogen hubs that have been initially awarded. It's slightly different from the European ones because with the European ones, when you are awarded, you sign the grant agreement, you sign the contract with the European Commission, and then you start to develop the project. In that case, I have included here in the US this hydrogen hubs timeline because it's slightly different. The concept is slightly different. So there are 4 implementation phases. So the phase 1, I am going to jump. I mean, you have an application phase, it's already done. And now we are in the phase 1. So the phase 1 calls for detailed plans to be developed within a year to 18 months. So the idea here is you need to explain what is your financial plan, what is your technical approach, what is your commitment with the communities, what is the safety plan, what is all of the details about how are you planning to develop this hydrogen hub should be discussed with the DOE, during this phase 1. Phase 2 is more focused on the project development. So again, it will take us like 2-3 years to develop the hydrogen hubs. Phase 3, which is the procurement, the construction, to build up all of the facilities, will take another at least between 2 and 4 years. And then at the end, phase 4 is where the hydrogen hubs are to begin production and fully operate. So we are talking about 10 years timeline in order to develop the hydrogen valleys there, while in Europe we are talking usually about 5 years. So the sizes are completely different. In Europe we have a small and large scale. A smaller scale is usually up to 1,500 tons of hydrogen per year. And large scale is more than 4,000 tons of hydrogen per year. Here we are talking about extremely more amount, of hydrogen, because we are talking about 1 billion. It's not exactly split it in the 7 hydrogen hubs, but we are talking about $1 billion for the hydrogen valleys for each of them to develop this infrastructure that covers and included several hydrogen plants, several end users. There are like a lot of infrastructure to be developed within these hydrogen hubs. So the projects were selected in October 2023. We are not in phase 1. negotiating. EPRI is part of these 7 hubs, just because we have a very direct, role there, or just because some of our members are part of them, and they are asking us to support them in this process. So the idea here is that we are now in negotiations in order to see which of these 700 has finally go to the next step. And the goal is to achieve commercial output not later than 2024. Sorry, 2035. So some key takeaways or some next action that I think that makes sense to highlight here. So this is my final slide, and the idea is that from the developer's perspective, we need to deliver, and deliver, hydrogen valleys, and to develop projects, and to see really, how we can learn, and how we can share. So for the ones that they have been like first movers and developers, it could be so useful to share real implementation success stories. There are a lot of topics regarding hydrogen valleys that if we establish this common space for sharing, we will help, another hydrogen valleys that they are now starting in thinking about some topics that they will need to take into consideration. And then if we are new developers, we will need to think very good about what is the valuable hydrogen end uses and the clear offtake potential. If we don't have off-taker, the hydrogen valley is not going to work. And in general, hydrogen projects are not going to work if we don't have these off-takers engaged. And then in terms of policymakers, we need to have this support specifically for hydrogen valleys. And then we will need to have like a general clean hydrogen policy priorities that take into consideration hydrogen valleys as established some particular, instruments and some particular ideas for this hydrogen valley. So for a specific policy support of hydrogen valleys, we need the policymakers to support the creation of new hydrogen valleys. We need to understand how it works. We need to understand, as far as we are able to have more and more hydrogen valleys, it will work better, and we will have the opportunity to learn about what are the lessons learned. Supporting the project preparation of Hydrogen Valley en route to FID. We have seen that FID is maybe the main hurdle that the Hydrogen Valley, face once they would like to develop this type of projects. And then again, facilitating dialogue and best practices sharing among the Hydrogen Valley developers. In general, when we are talking about general support, we are talking about supporting the demand side. This is not a question of if we don't need to select between support hydrogen production and support hydrogen demand. We need to develop all of it, at once, because it's the only way to do it really in a success way. Permitting procedures. We need to accelerate the permitting thing, not only for the clean hydrogen projects, for sure, but also for the renewables that are associated to this green hydrogen project. We can spend like 2-3 years just waiting for the permitting procedures, or in some cases for the renewable, places, more than 5 years in order to get the permits. And then for sure, there's another key issue, which is the research and innovation support. We will need, according to how the hydrogen valleys are working and how they are operating, we need to put a lot of efforts in order to get data about how they are working, to understand how the electrolyzer works in real conditions, what is the performance, what is the degradation, how we can do or produce hydrogen in a lower cost. So there's a lot of things that research and innovation could support in order to develop these hydrogen valleys. And that's all from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Maria, for that wonderful talk. We've got some time for questions now. We got some of them already in the chat, but if anybody wants to engage in conversation with Maria and with us, feel free to drop us a line in the live chat on YouTube. I had a question to begin with, just while we get people started and sending questions. Sort of a mix between your experience in the Hydrogen Valley in Mallorca and our project Animal trying to achieve successful seawater electrolysis. Because obviously seawater electrolysis is going to be very interesting and relevant for islands. And also islands are sort of closed ecosystems. So
Mm.
they could be a very nice pilot experience for things like hydrogen valleys. So how do you think the two technologies could work together? And do you think that islands now, small islands and also bigger islands, could become a nice pilot experience for the hydrogen economy, in the sense that you could provide hydrogen as the main source of energy and convert all the islands into renewable places? What do you think about that?
Hmm. Sure. I mean, I totally agree that we haven't discussed about water because we haven't discussed about every component,
Mhm,
of the hydrogen valley concept. But for sure, water is one of the key topics there, and more if you are talking about an island. So at the beginning, you mentioned that I was participating in the Green Highland project that we developed in
mhm,
Mallorca. So Mallorca is an island that is located, in the Balearic Island in Spain. So in that case, it was slightly different because we were working with Cemex. Cemex is a cement plant that is located in Mallorca. So they have their own will to provide water to the facility. But if we are
mhm,
talking, so it was a very specific, situation. But thinking broader and thinking bigger, when we are talking about island, water is extremely important. You cannot use the water that is supposed to use by the population, and so you need to be sure that you have this water available in the
mhm,
right conditions, and in the right amount in a timely manner when you are thinking of these type of projects, because usually, we have identified different archetypes and different sizes, but usually we are talking about 5 megawatts to gigawatts. So when we are talking about 5 megawatts, we will need this water availability. And island units is one of the topics that you need to consider. So developing technologies that facilitates or could, allow use directly seawater, I think that is extremely, extremely useful because, and
mhm,
in fact, at EPRI is one of the topics that we are now discussing, and now we are doing some projects in order to see what different waters, different water qualities, could affect the electrolyzer. So I think that
mhm,
we have a lot of common points, animal projects, on the hydrogen valleys, because the idea is that Europe wants to develop 100 hydrogen valleys up to 2030. We have now like less than 20, something like this, but every year they, in the call that they launch, they include these topics, large scale and small scale, because really they are a very important push of the European Commission that they are trying to develop this project. So, and this project also
mhm,
includes Ireland. I mean, it's not something that is super regional focus. What the European Commission is looking for is really to cover all Europe. So Ireland is another key topic. So I have been working in some proposals in the Canary Island and in some proposals in the Balearic Island and other island in Europe. And again, finding and proving technologies that could directly use this seawater would be extremely, extremely useful.
mhm. So that's a very interesting point, because you sort of brought up the next question that we got, which is related to implementation of like big scale initiatives. Because on the one hand, like we talked about like big hydrogen valleys, like up to 50 megawatts and way more. And then we also talked about like all the goals that the EU and the US have
Mhm.
to implement hydrogen valleys or hydrogen hubs in the future. Among them, we said that the EU aims to reach like 10 million tons of domestic green hydrogen production, and then even more to like export some of the hydrogen by 2030.
Hmm.
The number of hydrogen valleys we just discussed. So I've got a couple of questions about this. One is, could we maybe first clarify the numbers? Because like 10 million tons of hydrogen may sound like a lot, but just to clarify how much energy that actually is, and how many people that could provide, and how many, industry that could power it up. And then like the second question would be like, I mean, the follow-up question would be like, okay, how is that going to be successfully implemented, in the next decade? Is like the support that we're giving through the public costs that we discussed enough, or are we going to need more private funding? Are we going to need different initiatives to push for that to happen in the future?
Hmm. So let's start with you. If you agree with the second one. So for sure, public funding is not enough. I mean, usually if you go to the public funding calls, you will see that they usually covers like 20% of the investment. So
Hmm.
definitely we need, from my perspective, we need two additional things. One is the European Commission is looking for private investment. So they are trying to establish some regulations in order to facilitate this private investment. So one example, for example, is the European Hydrogen Back Action. That we
Hmm.
recently had a result for the first round with these 800 millions. So 7 projects, 5 of them in the Iberia Peninsula, which means a lot. And then
Hmm.
we have another one in Finland, another one in Norway. So definitely, you cannot develop a hydrogen valley if you only apply for one uh, private
Hmm.
public funding program. So the private funding is key, is essential, and the engagement there, not only from the ones that are producing hydrogen, but also from the ones that are consuming hydrogen. As I mentioned at the beginning, it's extremely important to have the takers on board since the very, very beginning. But and not only the
Hmm.
takers, I mean the whole stakeholders. I mean, when I'm talking about who is going to give you the permits, the government, the local, the regional, and the national government should be engaged, with the proposal, because it's a question that you are starting with a project that normally you would like to scale up. So you usually start with something smaller, very focused on mobility or some specific opportunity that you have in the region. But your idea is to scale up with this archetype 2, which is mainly focused on industry, and with this archetype 3, that is really completing, the approach with the export situation. So
Hmm.
private investment is key. I suggest to try to find, and not only to look for one public funding program, just explore innovation funds, IPCIs, other mechanisms that exist, even the European Hydrogen Bank. So your financial or finance plan is not so easy. It's a little complex because really you need to take into consideration a very different instruments if you would like to have like a very robust, financing. So
Hmm.
my suggestion is public funding usually covers 20-30%. You will need to look for more, a more
Hmm.
different instrument. These tax incentives, for example, are also very, very interesting. And private investment is something that the European Commission, I mean, is the base for them. So the European Commission is
Hmm.
thinking we will need to reach that approach. I'm counting on in the industry, and I would like to help, the industry to reach out this goal that we have established.
Hmm.
So in terms of the first question, we need to think that depending on the region, we are talking about different, slightly different concepts. So when we are talking about Europe, uh, the idea is to, or we have been already, working hydrogen valleys for at least, let me say 7-8 years, 10
Hmm.
years maybe. We started with a very smaller ones. And when I talk about smaller, it's also industrial because we are talking about 1 megawatt, 2 megawatt, 5 megawatt. So the idea there is to cover, some tens and some hundred of vehicles and mobility. You need to develop hydrogen infrastructure, hydrogen filling stations. So it's a concept that, just to give you an idea, one of these projects, including a 2.5 project, including the renewables, could have an investment between 50, 60, 70 million euros in total. So do you
Hmm.
think that this 20 or 30% we could help you in some, to cover pieces, but really you need to think higher. So in Europe,
Hmm.
we have developed this strategy that we are developing the pathway, like in a different stages with the different sizes of the hydrogen values.
Hmm.
We have something up to 1,400 tons per year. And then
Hmm.
we have another stage with more than 4,000, which definitely implies more than one country, more than one region that are connected, in order to transport the hydrogen to one region to the another. There is a lot of hydrogen facilities that are producing hydrogen. So the logistic there is extremely, extremely important because it's the difference between having something that really could operate or not. We need to keep in mind that when we are developing this type of projects, we need to accommodate all of the stakeholders' interest. So when you are planning, for example, to have
Hmm.
hydrogen buses, you cannot select or you cannot decide when you would like to, charge the hydrogen buses. So it's something that you have to negotiate with them and say, no, our hydrogen buses will be charged 5 a.m., for example, or 8 p.m. So it's something that is not clear. So we need to discuss with them. So for that reason, stakeholder engagement is so key. When we jump to other regions like US, it's usually bigger. All the things usually are bigger. So they are thinking always like a very, very bigger approach. So they are thinking
Hmm.
about one, to give you an idea, smaller scales in Europe for the Clean Hydrogen Partnership, the support is something like 10 million euros for a small scale and
Hmm.
20 million euros for a large scale. It's not enough to develop the whole concept. When you are jumping to the United States, they are covering a lot of regions, very, very extended regions, and they are thinking about $1 billion for each hydrogen hub, more or less. It doesn't seem that it will be 1 million exactly for all of them, but we have 7 hydrogen hubs with 7 billion dollars, which is
Hmm.
7,000 million euro of funding for them. So developing that in 10 years for me is so, so challenging because you have to manage a lot of things and not only technically, financing and permits, it's also people. You need to manage
Hmm.
uh, many, 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 many people. Just to give you an idea, in the one that I manage in Mallorca, maybe we were like 30 organizations, so we were something like 100 people working on that project, and it was
Hmm.
like a small scale valley. If I am thinking
Hmm.
about these large scale valleys that they are trying to do in the US, for me it would be extremely, extremely challenging. And then it's a 10 years, so they have a lot of go and no go decision in the pathway, in order to
Yeah.
see how the project is going to evolve. So it's really, really, so the concept is slightly different. At the end of the day, you would like to develop a mini ecosystem of hydrogen, but depending on the region, the way that you are developing the things are not the same.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting thing because I mean, I also had a question that I think maybe, could even give way to a whole new webinar about the social aspects because it's not only the people you employ in
Key,
the Hydrogen Valley, but also
key topic.
the people. Yeah, yeah, it's a. But I mean, before we go to that, we've got some questions from the audience that I would like to address before we move forward. So we have someone asking about two different technologies, green and blue hydrogen. So
Mm,
for those who don't know the differences, green hydrogen comes from renewable sources like water splitting with wind energy or like solar energy. Blue hydrogen may or may not come from renewable sources, but it's a technology that captures the CO2 generated in the production
exactly.
of of hydrogen. So we've got a nice blog post about this in the NML website if you want to go and read it. But they ask, what technology do you think will advance quicker and will scale more easily within the next decade, or is it going to be a complementary thing where we need everything we can do to get hydrogen in the market?
Yeah, very good question. So the idea here is, I think that the challenge is so big that we should have into consideration all the possibilities. So it will depend on the policy that the different regions are putting on the table. So if we are talking about Europe, usually in Europe, we are so focused on renewable hydrogen and all the delegate acts, all the different regulations that the European Commission, is targeting and is putting on the table. They are super focused on renewable hydrogen. If you jump to, for example, US, they are not talking about renewable hydrogen. They are not talking about colors. They are not talking about green. They are not talking about gray or blue. What they are talking about is low carbon hydrogen. Which that means that you can use different technologies because their main idea is to reduce the emissions. So for me, the idea is that again the challenge is so big that makes sense to analyze, and evaluate all of the different technologies and try to see how we can combine them in a way that it could be easier and could accelerate and facilitate this transition.
Mhm.
We do a lot of work on that sense. So we have developed a big model that considers all the technologies because we are agnostic. We are not telling that hydrogen is the future and is the only solution. So we are agnostic. So what we do is for a very scientific perspective and technical perspective, we analyze facts and we put on the table the results. So then the industry could, make these decisions about the type of
Mhm.
goods they would like to develop. So we are doing a lot of work in modeling this forecasting for how the energy system is going to evolve, or we need it to evolve in order to reach this decarbonization. So we have included CCS, we have included nuclear, we have included all of them. We have included natural gas, we
Mhm.
have included every single technology. What we have seen in the US is like a very big difference will be if you are using or you are promoting CCS or not, for example.
Mhm.
So doing this exercise helps you to understand that if we would like to reach what we have established as the decarbonization targets, we definitely need to put all the technologies on the table. I think that we
Mhm.
cannot only, and I'm not telling that the European Commission is not doing correctly. I understand the perspective in terms of pushing about for renewable hydrogen, but I think that makes sense that in a transition phase, this blue hydrogen I'm sure that it's going to play a key role there. As I know,
Mhm.
I think that natural gas is something that is going to stay with us more years than we expected at the beginning. So it's a transition. It's not something that you start today with A and tomorrow you have B. So if you want to address B, you need a
Mhm.
transition where blue hydrogen for me fits perfectly in this equation.
I think you brought up something that sort of ties very well together with the next and last question to close the discussion today. Because in the last few minutes, you talked a lot about the initiatives of the European Commission and how they compare to the US.
Mhm.
Obviously, the EU has some advantages, like looking only into green hydrogen and trying to diversify the regions that produce hydrogen as much as possible. The US, we talked about other advantages such as not disregarding other technologies like blue hydrogen, and then also a very big investment of up to $7 billion into hydrogen hubs. So, but just want to maybe get like a takeaway message from this, scenario in the two
Yeah.
continents. What is like the one best thing of the US that Europe is not doing, and then the other way around, and then maybe how could the two, learn from each other and sort of work together to achieve the goal sooner? Because 2030 is basically down the road from here. So what do you think is the best points from the hydrogen hubs and the hydrogen valleys, and how could the EU and the US learn from each other?
Mm. I think that in terms of Hydrogen Valley, one good point is that Europe has been working and has developed Hydrogen Valley for the last 10 years. So it's something that, although the size is not the same, some of the challenges that we are facing is something that the US needs to face as well. So if you are talking about permits, I am trying to imagine this 1 billion hydrogen hubs about the permits, about to anchor of the of takers, about to how to manage this big animal. So I think that is not easy. It has like a lot of challenges. So I think that we can share some of the key takeaways, and some of the lessons learned that Europe has been done during the last 10 years, although the size are not different, but they're common things. So they are, if you remember at the beginning of my presentation, I share
Hmm.
what is like the common points for a hydrogen valley. If we think they're super applicable to the US hydrogen valleys or hydrogen hubs, the concept is the same. So the size is not the same, but there are a lot of different things that we can do. So I think that one good point that they have established is that the US has established is that tax incentive. So they are now and it's something that Europe, although we started before discussing about these requirements that the renewable hydrogen should meet if we want the European Commission recognize this hydrogen as renewable. So if you look into both things, I mean the Delegate Act and the IRA Act, the basis is the same in terms of that they are looking for additionality, both of them. They are looking for developing the hydrogen plant and the renewables close one to each other. So, for example, in Europe, you cannot use electricity from Norway, green electricity from Norway, if you would like to produce hydrogen in Spain. So, what you need to
Hmm.
do is to build, new renewable facilities connected, or at least to the grid, but at least feeding, the hydrogen plant. So really, additionality is common. Uh, that it could be close in terms of geography is common, and then we have this correlation, time correlation match, which in Europe we are discussing about monthly until 2029 and hourly from 2030 onwards. And this is a discussion that they have already done. I think that they have like 1 year after, but it will be something like monthly and hourly. So although
Hmm.
we at Europe started discussing this earlier, I think that at the end of the day, we are very aligned what the US, is discussing right now. They need to detail a little more this IRA Act in order to see how it really applies to the different, projects. But I think that in the very basis criteria, we are really really aligned. So if we can leverage some knowledge and experience that we have already done, in Europe with the work that they are doing in the US, and vice versa. As far as they start
Hmm.
thinking in a very, very large projects, what is the plan that they have? What is the goal or no goal decision? What is the criteria and so on? I think that this way of just learning, sharing learnings, and experience, it could be a very good space for collaboration. I'm sure of it.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very positive and very nice message to wrap up. Thank you again, Maria, for joining us today. It's been
Thank you so much.
wonderful to have you in the NML webinars, and we've learned so much about hydrogen hubs and hydrogen valleys and the possibilities. Let's focus on the great opportunities that will arise from pushing this technology in Europe through different ideas and different strategies. Thank you so much for the presentation. Just a final note from NML for everybody watching live and everybody watching later on YouTube, because this will stay there forever in our NML channel. Feel free to connect with us through our different social media channels and our webpage. Like I said before, in the NML webpage, that's nml.eu. We've got a lot of information about hydrogen technology, in particular, a blog post about green, blue, pink, and different colors of hydrogen. Got information about electrolyzers and the different technologies, information about hydrogen valleys. So feel free to check that out and subscribe to our newsletter if you want to stay tuned to the latest news about the project. And then if you want to learn more about the upcoming webinars, we've got a tentative date, the beginning of October, for the next webinar, which is going to be a workshop with more than one speaker. We're probably going to have 3 or 4 speakers discussing different technologies in hydrogen. So please do subscribe to our newsletter to stay tuned. Thank you again for those who connected live. Thank you for those watching on YouTube later on. And I really look forward to seeing you in the next webinar in October. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.